Hello, and welcome to the ASCO Daily News Podcast. I'm Dr. Lillian Siu, medical oncologist and director of the Phase 1 Trials program at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center in Toronto, Canada, and professor of medicine at the University of Toronto. On today's episode, we'll be discussing key takeaways from the 2024 ASCO Breakthrough meeting in Yokohama, Japan. Joining me for this discussion is Dr. Melvin Chua, who served as the chair of Breakthrough's program committee. Melvin is the head of the Department for Head, Neck, and Thoracic Cancers in the Division of Radiation Oncology at the National Cancer Center, Singapore. Our full disclosures are available in the transcript of this episode. Dr. Chua, it's great to be speaking with you today, and congratulations on a very successful breakthrough meeting.
Thanks, Dr. Siu. It was really inspiring to come together again to showcase the innovative work of world-renowned experts, clinicians, researchers, medtech pioneers, and drug developers from around the globe. Now, our theme this year was inclusivity, and thus it was important to bring people together again in the Asia-Pacific region and to foster international collaborations that are so important in advancing cancer care. This year, we invited 65 international faculties, of which 55% were from Asia. Also importantly, we had a 50-50 split for male to female representation. This is a remarkable statistics for the meeting, and we really hope to retain this for future breakthroughs.
The meeting featured renowned keynote speakers who shared great insights on new technologies and therapies that are shaping the future of drug development and care delivery. Let's first talk about artificial intelligence and the keynote address by Dr. Andrew Trister. He gave a very interesting talk titled Plaiting the Golden Braid, How Artificial Intelligence Informs the Learning Health System. What are the key messages from his talk?
Couldn't agree with you more, Dr. Siu. Dr. Trister is the Chief Medical and Scientific Officer of Verily, a precision health company, and previously he worked in digital and AI at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also worked for Apple, where he led clinical research and machine learning with Apple partners. But perhaps it was really his background in his training as a radiation oncologist that was most pertinent, as he was able to weave both the components of new AI models and the applications and pitfalls in the clinic to the audience. Dr. Trister provided a very high-level view through the history of AI and showcased the progression of the different AI models. And he basically explained between deep and shallow methods, and also deductive logic versus inductive probabilistic methods. He then provided several clinical examples where these models have shown their utility in the clinic, for example, pathology and so forth. But at the same time, he illustrated several pitfalls with these models. So overall, I think Dr. Trister's talk was very well received by the audience, I think with several key messages, and one of which that struck me was the importance of high-quality data as a basis of good AI models. I mean, AI was also addressed in an education session that looked at AI in the cancer clinic. And we had a panel of experts that highlighted current progress and successes with AI in the clinic, advances with AI-assisted pathology for clinical research and precision medicine, large language models for applications in the clinic, and how we could leverage AI and precision oncology. And from this session, I had several sort of key points. Dr. Pearson gave a very illustrative talk on how multimodal information across clinical omics, radiological information, and multi-omics could be used to improve diagnostic tasks and clinical prediction of across different cancers. And Dr. Yong basically gave a very good talk on how AI can be applied in digital pathology to accelerate research in immunology and help in the development of immunotherapies. Dr. Bitterman shared very good examples of how large language models could be used in a clinic. And I think the example that really struck me was how she could be deployed to create responses to patient queries. And of course, the big question in the room was how could AI eventually encapsulate compassion in their response? I think this again showcased how large language models could really help to accelerate our clinical work going forward. And then ultimately circling back to data, I think Dr. Chung basically gave a very poignant description on the importance of data quality and how poor quality data could eventually lead to underperforming AI models. So all in all, I think this was a great session. And what do you think, Dr. Siu?
Yeah, Melvin, I totally agree with you. I echo all your comments, and I really enjoyed the keynote as well as the AI session in the cancer clinic chaired by Dr. Pearson. I think all of these sessions were really informative. Discussions on the latest AI and machine learning algorithms and technologies on digital pathology, large language models, and big data, as you said. It really enables the attendees, especially clinicians like myself, to gain a deep understanding of how AI can be translated to practical applications.
Great. So, Dr. Siu, let's talk about some of the novel therapeutics that were featured at the meeting. Again, this was a important session for Breakthrough, and it's always been there. So, could you share some highlights from the sessions on novel drug development from a perspective?
Yes, indeed. Drug development is such an exciting aspect of this meeting. On day 3 of the meeting, we had keynote by Dr. Shimon Sakaguchi of Osaka University, who discussed targeting regulatory T cells or Tregs in cancer, the science, trials, and the future. And he talked about T cell, especially Treg biology, the role of Tregs in immune regulation, new developments in Treg immuno-oncology drugs, and how we can actually target Tregs to treat early cancers, etc. This talk is particularly exciting because there are now anti-CCR8 antibodies in the clinic that specifically target Tregs, and some early signals of anti-tumor activities are already being observed. Dr. Sakaguchi also emphasized the importance of combination, sequence, and timing of drugs for the successful use of cancer immunotherapeutic agents. I also want to emphasize the education session that followed, titled The Future of Immunotherapy, New Drugs and New Ideas. In that particular session, we heard about engineering T-cell immunity to eradicate tumors. We heard about CAR T-cell therapy in GI cancers, novel immunotherapeutic combinations, and also T-cell engager, which are bispecifics in cancer. While success with some of these immunotherapeutic modalities, such as cell therapies and T-cell engagers, has been largely seen in hematological malignancies, we are beginning to observe efficacy signals in solid tumors. For example, the CAR-T targeting Claudin 18.2 in gastrointestinal cancers and the recently approved FDA-approved DLL3 CD3 bispecific T-cell engager tarlatamab in small cell lung cancer are really exciting examples. We also heard from investigators who are exploring neoadjuvant therapies in the neoadjuvant therapy session. And the key takeaway from that session are that we have growing interest in using neoadjuvant therapy or perioperative therapy, in other words, neoadjuvant plus adjuvant therapy in different cancers. In the neoadjuvant session, there were updates provided by different experts on the roles of neoadjuvant therapy in melanoma, liver cancer, bladder cancer, and nasopharyngeal cancer. Increasingly, there is randomized trial evidence to support the use of neoadjuvant therapy or perioperative immunotherapy in several cancer types with survival-based endpoints. Very exciting indeed.
No, indeed. And couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the things that went into designing the case-based discussions this year was that we wanted to talk about cancers that were relevant to this part of the world. And hence we again showcase lung cancers, gastric cancers, and melanomas. And whereby we have, again, perspectives from an expert from the West married to an expert from the East, thereby showcasing the diversity of practice around the world. The other thing that we did this year was we decided to pair the case-based discussions with the keynote and also the education sessions as well. For example, on day 3, we had Dr. Sakaguchi speak on Tregs, as you mentioned, and then this was followed by an in-depth session on immunotherapies, and then followed by a case-based discussion on different melanoma cases, on the role of neoadjuvant immunotherapy in this disease, and strikingly the relevance of response to prognostication. This is an important trait that we're seeing now.
So, Dr. Chua, we've discussed some breakthrough treatments and promising advances in cancer care, and we've touched upon some barriers to success in cancer treatment. I would like to ask you about the keynote address by Dr. Raffaella Casalino of the World Health Organization, who spoke passionately about efforts by the WHO and its partners to build equity in cancer care. Can you share some highlights with us?
Absolutely, Dr. Siu. I think in spite of the tremendous advances we've seen in recent years in oncology, there are still major disparities in cancer care, such as cost and access, which affect patients worldwide. I think her talk was, again, a very nice overview whereby she showed, first of all, WHO's impact in terms of the cancer resolution that was implemented in 2017, where through these initiatives, WHO has impacted 100 countries, invested $1 billion in funds, and that has led to millions of lives saved. But she then really drilled down to some of the key examples where really the focus of WHO in terms of equalizing care in cancer. I think one of which that struck me was the appreciation of the disparate clinical trials landscape. I think it is clear that there's still a huge barrier to clinical trials between the high middle income countries and the low middle income countries. And the majority of clinical trials these days, industry sponsored, and really need to look at leveling the playing field, in this regard. Then she also shared about WHO's work on trying to lower the barriers to precision oncology. And I think there are several issues in that sense, but I think what WHO has really worked hard on is promoting education for genomic medicine, where they've done several reviews with experts around the world to basically educate the field across the world on how do we interpret and apply genomics in the clinic. So all in all, it is very interesting to hear Dr. Castellino's insight from a policy's perspective. And again, emphasizes that there's so much work to be done at the end of the day, and the dialogue needs to continue. We heard about policy, academic, and industry perspectives in the context of clinical trials, and that led to discussion of real-world evidence, generation for regulatory approvals in decentralized trials, and it was very nice that we had a session on that to end off Breakthrough 2024. And in that session, we had experts again from academic, from the NIH, Dr. Shalland, as well as from academia, Dr. Janet Dancy. So all in all, I encourage our listeners to watch these sessions. The content is very rich if they were unable to attend, and I'm sure they'll learn from it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chua. Is there anything else you would like to cover before we wrap up the podcast today?
Thank you, Dr. Siu. The thing I really want to emphasize is, apart from all these education sessions and having very eminent keynote speakers, one of the key points that we really want to bring out for Breakthrough is that to showcase the high quality research. This year we had 300 abstracts submitted, and they were all high quality, cutting across trials, omics research, AI and technology, and eventually we selected 235 of them, and we were able to showcase some of them across 3 oral sessions over 3 days. I think this is an important component of Breakthrough that we really wish to continue building upon, where people are now excited to use this forum to showcase their work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chua. I really enjoyed our discussions today. I'll look forward to seeing how the Breakthrough meeting will continue to grow in future years.
Thank you again, Dr. Siu. Thank you.
Thank you to our listeners for your time today. You'll find links to the sessions discussed today in the transcript of this episode. Finally, if you value the insights that you hear on the ASCO Daily News Podcast, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform. This is not a substitute for professional medical care and is not intended for use in the diagnosis or treatment of individual conditions. Guests on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Guest statements on the podcast do not express the opinions of ASCO. The mention of any product, service, organization, activity, or therapy should not be construed as an ASCO endorsement.